My name is Rodger Cornell. I'm an explosives engineer.
Boom, shakalaka, turner.
All right, so right off the bat, there's a lot of gunfire. You see holes being ripped into multiple fuel tanks. Essentially just the perfect environment to start some sort of a combustion process. So you can see that there's at least some source of flame under the hood of the engine bay. So, oh man, that explosion is just ridiculous. We just saw bullets ripping through almost every fuel tank there. Those tanks, they no longer have any capacity for holding pressure, which will prevent the reaction from accelerating and turning into something violent like this. And I know it's The Rock, but no one is just gonna walk away from that thing. The villain in this movie is essentially trying to create a distraction. So he's thinking that by lighting the fuel source of an automobile on fire, that he can somehow create this explosion, and that's going to distract everyone inside. He takes a rag, inserts it into the gas tank to get it soaked with gasoline, and then you'll actually see him take this combustible material and use it to cover up the actual gas caps so that no gas vapors can be exposed. The big issue with this scene is the fact that I can't see why the gasoline would actually go through an explosive event. Even if you have a flame that exists at that gas cap interface, there's no reason for it to travel into the tank. I would expect the flame to just sit at that gas cap and just continue to burn until there were no more gases or gasoline vapors to pull from. You would essentially just have a giant car candle. In order to actually get it to explode, if I had to do it, I would try to seal up that gas tank as best as I can. And if you put a flame underneath that gas tank, if you start to heat it up, increase pressure to the point that it ruptures, and then all of that would light up and create somewhat of an explosion.
Let's go.
So James Bond movies are typically filled with ridiculous scenes that just are completely non-physical that we see. The one advantage that this scene has is I'm pretty sure there's no CGI or limited CGI here taking place. You can bet that there were charges that were timed in a very symmetric fashion so that the flame looked exactly as it does here. This poor man has been given essentially a suppository.
It's used by convicts to hide money and drugs.
Filled with C4, which is a really commonly used energetic material. It's been inserted into him. This is gonna get a little dark.
What do you got?
The human body is actually a really great tamping mechanism. We're made of water and we have pockets of air, and both of which do a really good job of dampening out shock waves. The guy would just have a really bad day. And don't get me wrong, he'd certainly be dead. But for the most part, there's no reason a fuel tank would explode. If you had that amount of material, it just wouldn't do that kind of damage. Way too much flame, the explosion's way too big. He shoots a bullet into the concrete to get this trail of fuel to start. Bullets don't spark unless you have very, very specific rounds. This wouldn't work at all. If I had to guess what would happen if you actually were able to light that trail of fuel, I'd imagine the car would just sit there and burn. It would get hot, it would burn for a while, it might melt some of the surrounding structure, and that's it. The fact, again, that there's fuel on the ground tells me that the fuel tank is ruptured. There's no real mechanism for building pressure in that combustion system.